All right, we're going to get started with 6.7, our 12 p.m. item, presentation of Roadmap Task Force Pilot Project. If Matthew can please go ahead and share the screen with the presentation. Supervisor Pyska and myself will share the presentation. And do want to thank all staff, and I'll go ahead and name them during the presentation, or one of us will name them. Want to thank staff for all the work provided to get to us to this situation of presenting to the board what is the plan with the Roadmap Task Force. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please, and let's get started.
And can we darken the room?
And if we can turn off the lights, please, for ambiance. Thank you. And so, as you recollect, I just wanted to give a brief summary. On April 16th, 2021, as we usually do every year, we have a board workshop. During that workshop, it was decided and directed to staff to go ahead and start working on the Roadmap Task Force based on a suggestion of enhanced code enforcement and community revitalization. Our first meeting that we got together for was on June 18th, 2021, and we've been meeting fairly regularly. I want to say at least once a month, sometimes a little bit more often, and it consists of animal control, code enforcement, law enforcement, administration, Supervisor Pyska, myself. An invitation to the district attorney has been sent out, as we believe that the district attorney has the ability to help us make sure that we succeed in other ways as well. Next.
What is it? It's a focused community revitalization. We're going to learn from the past, learn from law enforcement, code enforcement, North Shore Task Force. The goals that we've worked on are to decrease blight, decrease abandoned vehicles, decrease crime, enhance and decrease crime, increasing community safety, increase our quality of life, and stimulate economic growth.
And I'm sure that you're all very well aware of what was going on in the North Shore Task Force between the Sheriff's Department and Code Enforcement. We didn't want to start anything from scratch and reinvent the wheel, so we wanted to learn from what they had already done, but we did want to add a whole lot more to their scope, as we think that was an important part of it, but we want to expand on what they were doing. Next, please. So then we were tasked with choosing a community. Some of the criteria that we created, preferred if the community had a municipal advisory committee, preferred if a community was an entry point into the county to start the positive experience, no matter which direction people are coming into the county. And then also we wanted to review data for which communities needed that focused attention for the greatest impact. Next.
What is needed to be successful? So we looked, we had a lot of conversations. We dug into this really deeply, and we decided that 2 law enforcement officers, 1 sergeant, 1 deputy, 2 code enforcement officers. Animal control believes they can handle the increase with current staffing, support and participation from our local municipal advisory council and the surrounding stakeholders, and then develop an action plan.
Then measures of success, and this is still a work in progress, but we want to make sure that we have the ability to know and judge whether or not we have been successful with the mission that we're taking on. And so we wanted to obtain baseline data of code violations, crime statistics, and animal control reports. At minimum, have an annual review with the Board of Supervisors to update on the task force and its progress. And we want to create a timeline that's going to be a viable timeline for success. We don't believe that in a single year we can do the changes and the impact that we want to make. So we do believe that in 2 years, we would be able to find ways to reduce the baseline data, hence increasing the quality of life and making a safer community. Next, please.
So the first, we're starting with a pilot project. The first recommended community will be a pilot project, and the success may lead to other recommended communities in the future. Proposed positions for task force will remain with those communities. This will ensure that the changes made will not digress. If the pilot is successful and approved for expansion, new positions may be proposed for next community that is recommended. So the idea is if this is successful, we leave those staff in place in that community, and we expand to the next community, making new hires for new code enforcement, new law enforcement, so that we don't ever walk away from the work that we're doing.
Yeah, the idea was to create permanent change, not do a cleanup as we all have experienced, where you clean up, it feels good, you walk away, you come back a month or two later, and you have to start cleaning up again. And the adding of additional staff for future projects is a possibility depending on, is the need there, is the need not there, depends on if the next project is gonna be adjacent to the one that we started with, or if it's gonna be on a complete polar opposite side of the county, which at that point would probably require more. Next, please. So also, we talked about the revitalization of substations. Sheriff substations still exist around the lake and are not as prominent or utilized as they could be due to staffing. This project will help to bring law enforcement and code enforcement permanently into our communities. This will create faster response time and constant eyes on the community. And that right there, those last two, I think, are some of the most important reasons as to why that change will be permanent. We know that if we have law enforcement traveling through our communities, that people are less likely to do the things that they wouldn't do if they never saw law enforcement or code enforcement driving around. So we want that presence.
Okay, here's our big reveal. The committee recommends this community. Clear Lake Oaks.
And again, it's an entry point into our community, and that we feel that we can make an impact and make that change. And if we can move forward, we can see the map as to what the area of focus will be. Because Clear Lake Oaks does kind of cover multiple communities, and we wanted to make sure to make it a community that was within our capacity to make the change rather than making it too large of a scope. And so basically from the water tower on the east side that has the beautiful mural on it, all the way to Sulphur Bank Road and holding on to all of the keys and some of the surrounding areas off of the highway, making that community be our main focus. At least that is our recommendation to the board. And I believe that we have a budget for the next one.
So our draft budget, which is also still a work in progress, for salaries, we'll have $325,610. For nuisance abatement, it'll be just over $400,000. Services and supplies, $46,974, for a total of $707,584. And the funds come from the Cannabis Tax Budget Unit 1072.
And so then, once a community has been approved by this board, so we can move forward, these are the next steps to consider. Consider proposed budget on September 14th. Right now, it is still a draft budget, but it will be provided to us on September 14th when we go over the entirety of the budget. Start recruiting to fill those positions that have been allocated for this task force. Replace Supervisor Paiska with Supervisor Crandall to continue work on the committee. It doesn't make sense to have two supervisors on the committee that does not hold that community in their district. So we discussed it, and Supervisor Paiska has cordially offered to step down and let Supervisor Crandall come in. We need to start drafting an action plan so that we're ready to start moving forward with an actual process and strategy, and then start engaging with the municipal advisory council, not committee, but council and local stakeholders to get the participation of the community themselves. And so this can be businesses, this can be community members, but we know that the municipality, goodness gracious.
Municipal Advisory Council.
Municipal Advisory Council is going to be the focal point of most of the communities, because people know that that's where you go if you have concerns or if you want to see change in your community. And so we want to make sure to be engaged with them as much as possible. I believe that's the last slide. Yep. Any questions? Thank you, Sam. Supervisor Scott.
That budget, is that budget for just 1 year, or is that the 2-year budget?
That is a single year budget, yes.
And then are you thinking that going in there and revitalize the community it'll start paying for itself when we start getting the proper taxes from the houses that aren't, are we going in that direction, or are we just?
So we will be reviewing the administrative fines that will be coming back to us, and I think that will be a vital point of recouping some of the funds. I think the other side is we need to focus on what is the actual long-term goal. The long-term goal is to agitate the economy in the area. If you create a safer environment and a safer community, it's going to make it more interesting and intriguing for investors to want to come in and commit their dollars to that community. And so I would suspect that we will see some increases. I don't know that it will be a perfect wash of that, but I think that just the quality of life and everything else is what the people in all areas, granted we can only start at one area, or I feel we can only start in one area, that everybody deserves.
No, and don't get me wrong, I'm really excited about this, and I'm really excited for Supervisor Crandall, because this is in his district. I couldn't remember, are we working with the tax collector on this? So maybe we can also focus on, houses that aren't paying their taxes, we can get those back on the rolls? Is she involved, or?
I think that there's a lot of other options and opportunities. I think even looking at roads, because that's part of the area. And I'm going to say something, and I think it's going to come out perfectly right. When I travel through Lake County and I come over the mountain over St. Helena and I go through Middletown, that's how I want I don't want it to look exactly the same. I know we all have our own views and our own feel and atmosphere, but when I go through Middletown, that's the level of experience. I want to see the flags hanging from the posts to really show that there's a vibrant commercial community in the area. I want to see the beautiful park. I want to see going down Highway 29 in Middletown is a scenic route, and it going by the new Hardisters. That's what we need to see. We need to see that level of vibrancy everywhere when you enter into our community, and slowly we need to build inside to eventually have every single one of our communities look like that.
No, and I agree with that, and I think along with that, we build safety.
Yes.
Because people are more engaged in their community. We don't have the garbage. People aren't willing to dump the garbage. Our kids are safer on the street. So I'm really excited for this project, and definitely support it.
Yeah, and one other thing about the budget, a lot of that cost is staffing, and we are trying to grow this staffing. That's part of our strategy. And ultimately, we want deputies in every community. And ultimately, we want a code enforcement officer responsible for every district. So this is incrementally how we reach those goals. So it does seem, if you look at the budget, it's a lot. But those are already embedded in our other priorities.
Now, is there a substation in that area already?
So what we did is we looked at the Lucerne substation, which is within reach of that community. Already that would decrease the time for response for those that are getting calls from Clear Lake Oaks area.
Well, that would help out both communities then, having them in Lucerne. Great.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm ecstatic about this. Thank you very much. I think too that it helps that the East Region Town Hall Committee will have some, because they've actually in that town, actually all of my town councils have been getting a lot of activity lately, and it's revolving around what we're talking about as it is. There's been some folks that have been in the county for quite some time that brought something forward that took place in 2004, but then it dissolved and went away like you mentioned, and so it's perfect that you're stating that you want to try and ensure that things like this, if it works, it stays, that type of thing. So that's going to make a big difference. So I'm just really excited about this, and I know that they'll be excited too, and I'm pretty sure I can mention this to them tomorrow when we have our town hall in Clear Lake Oaks. So.
And I will add one thing. We do want dedicated staff, but just because somebody is hired in that dedicated position doesn't mean they can't move on up to other positions. We just want to make sure to have the allocated positions that we can keep full as much as we can so that those communities can have the service, the required service.
Right.
And there's one other part that we talked about, it's just a little bit alluded to in the presentation, but the opportunity for a partnership with some of the private industry and stakeholders in the community, and maybe working with them to help them develop a grant program for, assisting with facade sprucing up or
Right.
paint. And so I have reached out to and I'll pass that information along to just some of the bigger business owners who are really interested in investing in their community that way.
For uniformity and whatnot with the businesses.
Less about uniformity, but just about,
Like the
you know, a
ambiance.
fresh coat of paint, ambiance.
Right, yeah.
Curb appeal.
Curb appeal, all of those things that, the big stakeholders, you know, they want that community cleaned up just as much as everybody else.
Because they benefit from that economic vibrancy as well. Supervisor Sutton?
Yeah, you know, thank you for the hard work of the committee and, you know, all of our staff that helped put it together. And I appreciate that you didn't reinvent the wheel, but, you know, I did have, you know, just some of the same questions as Supervisor Scott, you know, how are we going to sustain this over a multi-year period? And I think, I would assume what you're doing is obviously this entails everything else that we're doing with the county. Obviously, we are working on everything with, you know, we made a big step last year with our workforce, and hopefully we're going to start to see those improvements. So hopefully as we go forward with the task force, we're going to be bringing money into our workforce that allows us to have those people available. So it's not a, you know, an offset all the time, you know, that we already have those extra staff people hired in the sheriff's office, code enforcement, and then they're just assigned to the areas. That's the long-term goal, right? How we're going to keep doing that? Okay, just want to make sure. And then, yeah, revitalizing, you put it up there, response time, one of the biggest ones that we always deal with, especially depending what end of the county you're on and our air enforcement. So I appreciate it. You know, very happy that it started in the Clear Lake Oaks area up there. You know, but this will be something that we're going to grow, as you said, for the entire county to keep moving forward. So I'll support it, and good job, committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no further comments, let's go ahead and go to the public comments. And so please come on up to the microphone. We have a comment in the boardroom, and we will get to the Zoom room once we're done in the boardroom.
John Moss. I live on Cobb Mountain, and for about 6 months to a year, there's been an abandoned vehicle, and where I walk, a 3-mile walk. And then there was another abandoned vehicle. And then they moved the first abandoned vehicle to the middle of the road. And I talked with code enforcement just 2 weeks ago. And he promised me he'd take care of it, and he did.
And Joan, this sounds
I
like-
went and thanked
Joan,
him for it.
Joan.
You said it was code enforcement, so I'm just commenting that it worked. I'm just commenting that code enforcement worked.
Thank
And I
you.
went to thank him. Thank you.
Thank you. Wasn't seeing the connection. Thank you for making the connection. And so let's go ahead and open up for the Zoom room. I see that we have Director Metcalf.
Yes, I'm a little video challenged, but I just wanted to remind the board that the county already does have a presence in Clear Lake Oaks, and I'm very excited about this because Behavioral Services has a peer sports center there at the Big Oak Shopping Center. So whatever we can do to help move this along, please let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you for the reminder. We are looking to work with every and any stakeholder within the county and outside of the, within the county departments and outside of the county departments as well. So, but again, appreciate the reminder and the comment. And next we have Betsy Kahn. Please provide your full name, which I think I got right, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Board. This is Betsy Kahn. I'd like to just give you a little laundry list of things that could help that I think you should consider. The first one is empowering the Municipal Advisory Council to update the shoreline area plan, which is really weird. Then implement the community wildfire protection plan, establish the hazardous vegetation management priorities, which is already being done by clerk and the Resource Conservation District. Consider grant to upgrade the fire protection water services there. Identify emergency management capacity building to develop community lifelines that are called for in the national response framework from FEMA, and then develop Firewise communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. And that is all the hands that I see both in the boardroom and the Zoom room. So bringing it back to the board, and I don't believe we need an actual motion for this today unless Supervisor Crandall feels the need to celebrate with a motion. But I think direction is good enough.
Yeah, you may want to do it to make it stick.
Okay, yes. So I will motion to approve the implementation of the Roadmap Task Force Pilot Project Action Plan in Clear Lake Oaks.
Second.
We have a motion from Supervisor Crandall and a second by Supervisor Pyska. Johanna, roll call, please.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Scott,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Sabatier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.